Hello, it's Richard and his bowls. My previous sessions I've been in some bowls clothes, but today is all about theory. So I've got a chart here which shows a typical indoor bowls rink, and this is 36 meters long, and each rink is 4.5 meters wide, so it's about 14 meters across the top, and it's divided into rinks 1, 2 and 3, and you have to have the jack 2 meters from that ditch. There's a yellow jack, that's another 2 places it could be, and you're going to be bowling from this end in my demonstration, and there's a mat there. The mat has to be at least 2 meters from that end, so the distance from the front of the mat to the jack on the longest distance you can have is 32 meters. That's 36. There's 2 lots of 2 meters. The minimum jack length is from the mat to 23 meters here. And I'll now go on to talk about the rest of the theory of aiming and where you aim. And the first thing I'm going to say is that you've got the grip sorted out, you've got the delivery sorted out, you're standing on the mat, you're looking up at the jack and you're thinking how it's 32 meters away, where am I going to aim? Okay, and are you going to go backhand or are you going to go forehand? If you bowl first, there's no other bowls on the rink, so it's your choice. You can bowl wherever you want. Now, in indoor bowls rinks, there's no difference between a backhand and a forehand. If you're outdoors, it's a different matter. You're playing on grass, the grass is longer here and there, and the one side of the rink can bowl totally differently to the other side of the rink. But indoors, that isn't the case. So you can bowl backhand one way, and then turn around, come in the other way, go backhand the other way. Or you can go forehand one way, a backhand up to that way. On the way back, go forehand. It's up to you, entirely up to you. If I'm playing singles or leading, I tend to go backhand both ways indoors. I go backhand that way, turn round and come backhand that way. What you don't want to do is become what I call a one-handed bowler, i.e. you just bowl backhand all the time. Now there's no difference in theory between a backhand and a forehand. It's the same grip, same aim and everything else. And when you get to play further down the rink and you've got to conjure different shots up, you have to bowl forehand because quite often the backhand is blocked, you can't bowl it. So try not ever just to bowl one hand. If you've got a problem with one hand, give me a comment and I'll give you some tips how to overcome that. Right, now the main point of today's talk here is where do you aim? And there are three ways of, roughly three main ways of where you aim. One is, you're standing here, you look at the bank here and you take a fixed point on the bank. For example, that number 1 tells you where number 1 rink is. So one choice would be, you're on the mat, you're aiming somewhere around this number 1 mark. So that's an example of an aiming line, that I'm going to aim where to bowl. And the idea is, you're aiming down this line, and as it travels down the length of it slows down, and the bias on the bowl brings the bowl curving it back to the jack. It's trial and error where you get which point you take, but I always start looking at number 1 and then adjust it. So that's the first point. Then I've got the second one is you take an imaginary point on the green. So what you do, you don't look at the bank, you're looking 2/3 way down the green. You say, well, where does my bowl start to curve? Where does it curve? I'm going to aim for that point there. I'm going up this line and I'm aiming for a point here, knowing that it's going to curve around to the jack. That has a disadvantage that you're bowling on an imaginary point, so you can't actually see anything where you're bowling to, but it does have the advantage of you get a better feel for the length you're bowling, because if you're bowling to a jack here or bowling to a jack here and jack there and you're aiming up there, it doesn't have any feel for the length, but I'll tell you what you should do to avoid that. The third possibility is neither of those, you just kind of almost guess it. You know, you might look at the jack and just guess how wide you're going to bowl, but for me, I'm a bit scientific in these things. I like something really, once you get that point, once you've got that point on your line, you can stick with it and it'll see you through a game, guaranteed. You can't fail with it. So the setup for the bowl, once you've got your aiming point, you have everything in line with that point. So if I'm bowling to you at the camera, if that's my aiming point, my feet are square, even though they've got slippers on. My feet are square to you, my eyes, head are square, my shoulders are square to the aiming point, and obviously my leg goes down to the aiming point, all like that. You don't point straight down the rink, because if I'm bowling backhand, if I'm looking down the rink there, I'll be bowling across my body. That's wrong. Everything has to be aimed for where you're going to, your aiming point. That's your total focus. You can't, when you're focusing on, I said earlier, how do you gauge the length? The answer is, you're standing here, you're lined up with that aiming point, but your eyes then go to the jack. Where's the jack? Is it a full length there? Is it a short jack here? Is it a medium jack there? So your eyes are looking at, that's my line, that's a jack, that's my length, back, that's my... You might have to go backwards and forwards 2 or 3 goes to get this length of jack fixed in your mind. Once that length of jack is fixed in your mind, you switch to your aiming point and off you go with your aiming right down that line. Now, when the mat is moved up, you have to adjust that line. So this line here is for the full length jack. It's going up there. Now, if the mat can be moved anywhere up to here, the minimum length of jack has to be 23 metres. So if the mat is here to that jack will be 23 metres. Your aiming line is different. It has to be inside there. So that's your full length aiming line. If your mat goes up, you have to bring the line in. I'm guessing here, but you have to work it out when you're on the bowls rink. If the mat is here, you perhaps be aiming somewhere in between those two things. The same thing, of course, applies to the forehand exactly. The only difference is the forehand is slightly wider than the backhand. The reason is you've got your width of your body on the mat. So if you're going that way, you're coming inside the line. If you're bowling that way, it's a wider bowl because of the width of your body. So when you're coming forehand, your line can be anywhere from the edge or even outside the line of the mat. Your arm is outside the mat. So, but on the backhand, you can't have your backhand out here because you'd be off the mat. So on the forehand, you may want to aim slightly wider than you would on the backhand to account for this thing. But it's all trial and error, and you can adjust your feet on the mat, and when the mat goes up, what I do in a game, if I can, I sometimes put the mat where my best marker is. So I think, oh, that's a really good marker for me. Where does the mat have to be in order for me to get the best, a guaranteed line? So that's almost the other way around, but that's the way I have trying to get in sync with my mat and where my aiming line. I think that is all I need to say today. Finding your line is very difficult. It's the hardest thing I think we have to do on the bowls rink. The length is trial and error, and I'll do a different thing on length, but basically the length is longer you bowl, the more extended your body is, and the shorter it is, your body's a bit more compact. But it's trial and error, and different rinks are different speeds. So you have to, there's nothing technical about it really. There are ways of practicing length bowling, which I can deal with in another session. So what I'm saying is it is a difficult thing to get that line, and if you get it though, if you finish a foot in front in line, a foot behind in line, that's a good place to be. In fact, if you're a foot in line in front of the jack, the opponent can't see the jack, it makes it difficult. So you get that line, if you finish the bowl, if you finish level with the jack, that's not great because it's easy for the opposition to get in. So line is important. If you have any problems with your line, please put it in the comments and give me your thoughts and any problems. In the meantime, if you care to press the like button and subscribe, that would be really good. Thank you again, and see you next time. Bye.